Hello, Tom. This is Paramount speaking. We have a mission for you. Should you choose to accept it, we want you to turn a 30-year-old TV show into a new summer franchise and ensure each sequel surpasses its predecessor over a span of 20 years.
Good morning, Mr. Phelps. This is your mission should you choose to accept it. Should you or any member of your IM force be caught or killed, the Secretary will disavow all knowledge of your actions. Ethan Hunt will be your point man as usual. Good luck, Jim.
And thus, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Cruise took on the role of Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible series, engaging in thrilling halo jumps, rock climbs, motorcycle duels, and uncovering global threats across numerous countries. Alongside him, a cast of recurring series veterans such as Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg, as well as occasional players like Jeremy Renner and Paula Patton, provided assistance. Interestingly, the IMF, the organization Hunt works for, often suspected him of going rogue despite his accomplishments. A defining feature of Mission Impossible series has been the introduction of a new director for each installment, including John Woo, Brad Bird, and Brian De Palma, which brought a unique touch to each film. However, since Rogue Nation, Cruise, who also serves as a producer, found an ideal collaborator in Christopher McQuarrie. McQuarrie became the first director to helm 2 consecutive Mission Impossible films, with Fallout achieving both commercial success and critical acclaim. McQuarrie is set to direct the next 2 films, which were shot concurrently and were scheduled for release on May 27, 2022 and July 7, 2023. But before we witness the next death-defying adventures, rumor has it that Ethan Hunt hasn't been to the moon yet. Let's talk about the previous Mission Impossible movies based on their release dates. And our first film of today is Mission Impossible 1, directed by Brian De Palma and was released in theaters in May 22nd, 1996. Guys, I was just 6 years old. A production designed to entertain and do it in such a way that the viewer remains glued to the seat with De Palma's visual and narrative inventiveness. There are some standout action sequences, and that's what really makes it worth a look back. Let's take along Mission Impossible 2, that was directed by John Woo and produced by Tom Cruise and Paula Wagner and released on May 24th, 2000.
Agent located. Identity confirmed.
Good morning, Mr. Hunt.
Sorry I barged in on your vacation.
This is a film that remains eternally fascinating, particularly as a demonstrable nadir of otherwise one of cinema's most consistently entertaining blockbuster franchise. Let's go along with Mission Impossible 3, directed by J.J. Abrams and produced by Tom Cruise and Paul Warner. This third installment was released in the theaters on May 5th, 2006. It's the relationships and crafted action sequences that kept me glued. It's not perfect by any means, but hands down, this was the best entry of the 3 to me. When you go along to the next, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol.
An hour ago, a bomb blew up the Kremlin. The president has initiated Ghost Protocol. The entire IMF has been disavowed. Now I've been ordered to take you to Washington, where they will hang the Kremlin bombing on you and your team, unless you were to escape after assaulting Brandt and me. But if any one of your team is caught, will be branded terrorists out to incite global nuclear war.
Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol is filled with edge of your set thrills executed with great performances, visual splendor, and great direction, all thanks to Brad Bird. Directed by Brad Bird and produced by Tom Cruise, J.J. Abrams, Brian Buck. This installation was released in theaters on December 21st, 2011, and prolonged fight scenes and car demolitions and long distance jumping stretch and boundaries of believability. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, directed by Christopher McQuarrie and produced by Tom Cruise, J.J. Abrams, and Brian Buck, David Ellison, and Dana Goldberg, Don Grager. Rogue Nation was terrific fun. The best action movie of the summer without Mad Max in the title. It's also arguably was the best Mission Impossible movie of all times. Impressive for the 5th installment in the movie series. Rogue Nation was the kind of movie that embraced everything right about its predecessor and then elevates it later. To the next installment, Mission Impossible Fallout, released in 2018. With Fallout, McQuarrie delivers not only the best film in the franchise after De Palma's sick original, but one of the great films.
Your mission.
Directed by Christopher McQuarrie and produced by Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, Jake Myers, J.J. Abrams, only to be released on July 27, 2018. To be honest, this should make one of your dad's favorite movies of the decade. We are now here waiting for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 1, the first installment of Dead Reckoning, to be released on July 12, 2023. And from the trailer,
our lives are the sum of our choices. And we cannot escape the past. Ethan, this mission of yours is gonna cost you dearly.
we are about to go on a ride. I can't wait, guys. I'm so excited about this, and even as we wait for part 2 of Fast 10, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 is yet to be released in 2024. Official dates are yet to be confirmed. Now guys, from Ethan's love stories with Julia and Ilsa to IMF's conflict with the Syndicate, a Mission Impossible recap is needed before the 7th film. Tom Cruise's flagship franchise will return for its 7th installment with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, set for the release on July 14th, 2023. The film's teaser has promised big things to come, as Ethan Hunt's team IMF members take on a massive threat once more. Since the franchise is already 6 films deep, it's best to remember the most important plot points so far. Individual movies can be enjoyed on a standalone basis, but there are certain acts and story outlines that viewers always need to be aware of. Whether it's Ethan's romance angles with Julia and Ilsa, Solomon Lane's actions with the Syndicate, Mission Impossible recap needs to be on the cards. Well, the primary outline of the series surrounds the Impossible Mission Force, an independent espionage agency that the US government keeps in its employ. It's not strictly part of the government itself, because the IMF is seen as a risky agency that the government can cut ties with at any point, at any time. The IMF is primarily responsible for things outside of the capabilities of the FBI and CIA, with its agents largely kept a secret from many members of the government. Ethan Hunt's role in the series is squarely tied with the IMF as a senior agent who has risen in the agency ranks. Well, the first Mission Impossible doesn't rank as the highest anymore. It brought one of the biggest betrayals in the form of Jim Phelps selling out IMF. The primary storyline here was of Phelps killing off his members and its team pinning the blame on Ethan. Moreover, he sold the names of all the IMF agents in Central Europe to arms dealer named Max, which Ethan managed to intercept. Jim's betrayal turned Ethan into a person who only trusts those who prove themselves to him. Max's role became notable in Mission Impossible Fallout, where Ethan learns her children have now become arms dealers as well. Some of the very best Mission Impossible movies yet have to do with Ethan's being questioned by the IMF itself.
Mr. Chairman, the IMF's misadventures date back to my earliest days at the CIA, when the IMF broke into the CIA to steal a list of covert operatives. And now, more recently, a Russian warhead,
Disarmed Russian warhead.
a Russian nuclear warhead,
Rendered safe by the IMF.
clipped the Transamerica Pyramid before plunging into the San Francisco Bay.
Saving the Western Hemisphere.
This made possible by IMF agents who did willingly provide the launch codes to a known terrorist. Do I have that right, Agent Brandt?
I can neither confirm nor deny details of any such operation without the Secretary's approval.
This was
The agency sees him as a maverick who does what he wants while undermining orders. This sensitive position for the protagonist has gotten him on a very bad side of his superiors. The IMF secretaries like Alan Hanley have both opposed and supported Ethan's methods, but have faced the brunt of the government for his questionable tactics. Each movie sees Ethan going against orders and having to deal with the consequences of his actions. By Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, it became clear that the world's governments had been compromised. It's up to Ethan now to convince people in authoritative positions to believe his claim that the syndicate is responsible for pulling the strings of corruption. Solomon Lane is the leader of the syndicate after it was originally started by MI6 handler Atlee. The apostles are the remnants of the syndicate after Lane is exposed, still causing corruption by using August Walker, John Lark, as the inside man who convinces CIA director Erica Sloan to disrupt Ethan until his own villainy is revealed. Let's carry on. The reasons for so many over-the-top Mission Impossible action scenes come down to Ethan having a lack of resources. This is a result of IMF's authority being undermined by the government numerous times, largely due to villains framing them for their own work. Interesting, guys. It was seen at the large scale of Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, where the IMF was blamed for the bombing of Kremlin and dissolved. The IMF was once again undermined in Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and Alan Hanley convinced the CIA to assimilate the agency. As far as personal acts go, Ethan's conflict comes from his inability to stay grounded because of his hero complex, his ego. Ethan doesn't believe anyone can step up to save the world as he has, due to how many times the villains have come close to causing global disasters. As a result, Ethan's attempt to settling down didn't pan out. He married Julia Mead in Mission Impossible 3, but they were divorced prior to Mission Impossible Rogue Nation because he couldn't guarantee her safety. Ethan's life has since essentially turned into whatever activities he undergoes with the IMF. Ilsa's first introduction has brought in a level of excitement for Mission Impossible movies because of the mystery provided by her characterization. She initially appeared to be a villain until it turned out she was MI6 agent who had to face the brunt of Solomon Lane turning the syndicate into a terrorist organization. Her arc continued into Mission Impossible Fallout, where Ilsa had to prove her loyalty to MI6 to be exonerated for involvement with the IMF. She was able to win her freedom after Solomon Lane was handed over to MI6 at the end of the movie, bringing her 2 film arcs to a close. Ethan and Ilsa's paths crossed during their conflict with the Syndicate. While their goals have been different in both movies, they've been featured in as of yet, they understood what drove the other. Ethan and Ilsa ended up uniting in their mission to bring Solomon Lane down, and their respect for one another became an attraction. By the events of Mission Impossible Fallout, the two have made their feelings for one another very clear. The end of the movie saw them admit their love to each other, whose impact should be the primary arc for both characters when Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 begins. That's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for showing me love on my previous video. Follow me on all social media platforms at the6th_, and that's Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I am Jacob Ayo on LinkedIn and on Facebook.